you said you were flipping for 3 years. What was it that all of a sudden, you said in the back of your mind you kind of wanted to flip and then do rentals, but what made you all of a sudden just say I'm diving into rental properties?
Well, I think it was combined with the sad reality that the way I was running numbers on flips really wasn't kicking out large profits.
Mm-hmm.
Since the large profits weren't there for me to get into rentals with that type of strategy, then I would be using all of my money to start to build a rental portfolio. And by using all of my money for the rental portfolio, it still puts me at risk because I haven't saved my retirement savings. Okay. I've now got them, that emptied out and poured into rental properties
Mm-hmm.
without using some type of leveraging. And I've never been a leveraging type guy. I've always been more of a kind of pay cash for things and you own what you own. And it wasn't until that I started talking with Andrew that, I realized that there are some good leveraging techniques out there that don't have to be risky. You can still walk away with a property that's cash flowing, have a good 35% equity in it so that you can weather out the storm on recessions. Okay. I also was very concerned about flipping because of recessions, because I'm old, I've lived through a lot of recessions. And if there's one trade or one group of people that really suffer in a recession, it's always the people in the housing industry, construction industry. And, to me, it always seemed like everybody got out over their skis. We had a bump in the economy and they were leveled. And most of those people never returned. They just were pulverized. They just never came back. So my goal was, my question to me was, I'm flipping. I'm not really stashing away those big profits to buy rentals. I don't want to empty out my savings to buy rentals. How do I get that done? And really it was learning more about leveraging and smart leveraging. I'm probably one of the most paranoid people you'll ever meet as far as recessions. People I talk all the time. We talk about exit plans, right? It's always about exit plans. And
that's smart.
And I think just about everything I've ever done, I don't ever really get complacent. I don't, there's a lot of I see a lot of times when people have a system and it's a good system, and they'll ride that system to the very end. It might be a good idea. Probably they should have tweaked it. They should have made some changes. So while I don't want to chase after a bunch of shiny objects, I still always want to be looking at where am I heading and does it need some slight correction to get me where I want to go.
Yeah.
So for me, the first thing was learning about what does a rental house look like? Because in my mind, it looked a lot different than what reality has been for me. I probably would have looked at square footage, the neighborhood of the house, all of these things. To me, I've always had a lot of pride in the things I've owned, and I would have, without some guidance there with Andrew, I probably would have wandered into some, let's just say, A-level towns. I would have overpaid. They wouldn't have cash flowed. We'd have some bumps in the road as far as maintenance, and I'd have been out of the game in seconds, and that's just the way it would have worked. But I think with a better strategy, finding out, you want to be, I would say you'd want to be somewhere between that A zone and a war zone, right? Your properties. There's no sense dying over all of this. But there's good neighborhoods out there that people need housing. And actually, I truly enjoy what I do with the rentals. I've had great tenants. I've had very good experiences. Made a bad call on the last one, but we're going to make a bad call here or there. But the overall experience and my overall outlook of where I'm going is very bright.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, I'm looking at really ramping up this year. We did move. Our target area was the suburbs of Chicago, and I'm moving a little bit over the state line. There's just a difference there in taxes and expenses.
The state line in Indiana is what you're saying.
Indiana,
Yeah.
yeah. And there's a little bit of difference there with landlord-tenant laws and rules and stuff like that that make it favorable. You'll get less rent. Taxes are a little bit lower. You might pay a little less for the properties. I think you have to look a little harder. There's not as much inventory there. But I think it's in the end. I hope it's going to be the right decision. I think it will be.
Yeah. So you mentioned, I appreciate you explaining that, because I think you mentioned a few things that hold people back when it comes to rental properties, especially in the very beginning. Number one was, you said that you felt like you needed to make a whole bunch of money first before you dove into the rental properties through the flipping, or, I think other people think of other ways. They got to do a bunch of stuff before they get into rental property investing, because it seems like it's very unattainable from a financial standpoint. But you realized eventually that, it's possible. Like with smart leveraging, you can jump right into rental properties, and you could still do flipping here and there at the same time. And then the other thing was, I think a lot of people just think of buying rentals in the area that they would want to live in. It's very difficult to separate in your mind in the beginning that, everybody doesn't live the exact same lifestyle. Everyone doesn't have the same background or the same idea of what makes a great property. I know for some of mine, my tenants have moved in, and it's a property that's smaller than I would want to live in, or it's maybe not in the neighborhood that I would want to live in, but I've rehabbed it nicely, and they move in and say, this is the nicest place I've ever lived in. And so I think being cognizant of that and separating in your mind that this is not my property. This is purely an investment, and we're providing a nice place for people to live, but we do have to make it work from a financial standpoint, I think, is something that you got to really get beyond quickly when you first start out, or else you can, like you said, end up buying something that'll put you under right away. So those are two great points. Hey, thanks for tuning in to this segment of the interview with Randy Ridderhoff. I think he's a great example to anyone who might be thinking, I'm too old to get into rental property investing, or I'm getting close to retirement or the end of my career, so it's too late for me to build a rental property portfolio. But, he's got 6 rental properties. He's planning to add another 30 over the next 2 years. And I think, it's a great example for people who have, kind of caught themselves with that sort of mindset. So if you want to hear more about how he's doing this and listen to the full interview, you can check it out on any podcast player. Also, if you got value out of this clip, out of this segment of the interview, if you could give it a thumbs up and also hit subscribe. There's going to be other segments of this interview. There's going to be a lot of other interviews that'll be released on a weekly basis, so you get notified when those are released. Also, if you want to continue the conversation, head on over to the Living Off Rentals Facebook group. I hang out there. There's a lot of other great rental property investors that hang out there. You can get your questions answered. You can also continue the conversation there. So I hope to see you there. And until next time, I'll see you in the next video.